Hi everyone! About 2 years ago we posted a video on how I made these DIY no-sew window covers. It's the most popular video we've made to date, probably because there's a lot of you out there that don't want to pay stupid amounts of money on window covers, or if you're like me, you don't know how or don't want to sew. Today I thought I'd give you a little bit of an update about how these have been holding up, as well as show you some new curtains and window covers I've been making for the other windows of the van. And I'll share you some tips and tricks I've learned along the way. Alright, the next little project. We've had these curtains since we started at the very beginning in the van. It was one of the first things we hung up. But all this time they have been way too long. This is actually what I've just cut off the bottom. We had all this extra material. So I actually did do a little sewing. I have not sewed in years. I was little when my grandmother taught me how to sew for some doll clothes, and that's the last time I've ever sewn. So I borrowed a sewing machine from a friend, and I attempted to hem this curtain, and there were some bumps along the way, but overall it worked out. Definitely not a seamstress. Some of the lines aren't so straight, but I practiced and got better as I did it. So here's an example of where I didn't do so great. But whatever, I figured it out. I made it work where I had actually just sewed the inside edge so it won't fray anymore in the future. But that's the inside, so it doesn't really matter. You'll notice I have two curtains here. We had these old curtains when we lived up north a long time ago, and since we had both of them, I decided to do 2 layers. So we'll have some extra insulation in the winter, and it'll also block out light at night and I guess in the morning. So it's nice to have these a little bit finished better and to have that extra insulation. The next thing I've been working on are the curtains for the 2 side windows. You might not be able to tell because this actually looks a lot similar to what we've had. And that's because it is very similar, but with upgrades. This material is actually tablecloth. This is one tablecloth that I got from Walmart. I bought this when I did the first insulated window covers for the back of the van. Our plan was to actually make insulated covers for these side windows, but I found that if I folded it in half and a half again, I guess that's quarters, and put it up here, it fit actually pretty decently, and we've been holding it up with magnets, and we basically would just roll it up and use this ribbon material to hold it in place. And we decided that we actually liked it looking more like a curtain than the insulated window covers that look more, like a van or vehicle. So since I already had the sewing machine from my friend, I decided that I might as well go ahead and hem these nicely. And instead of having the 4 layers of material, I actually cut it down to size, folded it in half, and I added some material in between the outside black material layers, so it's a little better insulated. So the other thing is that with the original folded material, it was way too long, so we had to fold it over to fit in this section. So I knew I could improve that, and I got to work cutting and hemming. So since working on our last window covers, I've learned a lot. I'm definitely no seamstress, but I went to the School of Hard Knocks. So this time around, I've learned to pin my material when I cut it, especially this material since it's a little more slippery. And by dumb luck, I have a chalk pen that I bought for chalkboard paint, and I learned that I can mark the material. I couldn't figure out before how to easily mark everything. So I've marked this, measured it out, gonna go ahead and cut it. Oh, and the other thing, I've also started to clamp the material, and that also helps it stay and not slip. The tablecloth material is a little tricky to work with because it's slippery. I learned that a good rule for sewing in this type of application is simply to line up the edge with the inside of the sewing machine foot, and the machine does a pretty good job maintaining a straight line. Okay, so I've got the material all laid out here. Basically cut it down to size after marking it, and I've hemmed it, and I am not a good seamstress, so I've kind of winged it a little bit. The hems aren't super great, I don't think. And because I didn't want to have extra seams here, basically what I did is I left this cut edge, but I used stitch witchery all up and down the seam so it shouldn't unravel anymore. Seamstresses would probably cringe to see this, but that's what I've done. Then inside the two panels, I have an old sheet and an old piece of like t-shirt material. We had both of these just sitting around in the house, and it's basically just to act as extra insulation to help keep the heat out when the sun's beating down, and then in the winter just that extra couple layers. I've pinned the 2 layers of material here at the top where it's folded over, and I'm using these magnets to hold it in place. Next, I'm actually going to use stitch witchery. What I do is I place the magnets in here, and I use the stitch witchery to basically set them in place instead of trying to sew pouches or sew anything around them. Alright, so here's what I've got, and I actually should have done this before when it was on the table before I transferred it to the ironing board. But I have my brown sheet, which is going to be affixed or attached to the top panel of the black material. So I've got stitch witchery going along the whole top edge here, and then underneath that I actually have stitch witchery between the sheet and the other material. So hopefully when I iron it, what's going to happen is the brown sheet will be attached to the black material, the white material will be attached to the brown. Then I will flip it over and I will put the magnets up in the top, if that makes any sense at all. Here's the stitch witchery between the sheet and the top piece of material. I'm going to fold it down and iron. And hopefully it'll fuse the stitch witchery to all the material. My sidekick and van cat extraordinaire, Miss Lady Grey Grey, was here as usual to oversee the project. She's trying to work her way up to supervisor. So this is fused, and then this below is also fused. So now all the material's all connected. So I finished that top edge and I'm flipping it over. This is going to be the back side that's going to go up against the metal door. So what I'm going to do, this is really a pain to work with. I wish I had an ironing board that was twice the size. But basically, now you can see how disgusting this material is that we're using, but I washed it, it's just stained, so it doesn't matter. Here's the top edge. I'm going to use one of these strong magnets, and I basically take the stitch witchery and I frame it. I cut a piece to go all the way around. I'll put the material back and sew it so it'll make a little pocket and hold it in place. So it's not pretty, but here's the stitch witchery going around the magnet. I'm going to put this material down over it and iron it in place. For those of you who don't want to sew or don't have a sewing machine, the nice thing about this whole project is you could do it all completely with stitch witchery. No sewing necessary. Basically hold it for 10 seconds. And then it should fuse it. Alright, and there it is. You can see the shape of the magnet where I've used the stitch witchery to basically just make a pocket in the material. And now it won't move around because the stitch witchery is holding it in place. So I'm basically going to repeat the process. I'm going to put one magnet like this on each end, and then I think two spaced out along the top in the center. So here's the next project, the other side. So it was the same principle, and I can show you a little bit better here. Basically folded the tablecloth in half, cut it to size, and then I have this material in between that's kind of an extra insulation. And then at the top I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 large magnets, and then I hemmed this, and I used a lot of stitch witchery on this project, as you'll see. And the same concept will go here. We'll have the ribbon and simply just roll this up like so when we need to. Alright, another little project that I've been working on is this, which is an insert for the opening of our MaxxAir fan. Our friends Eula and Alex of Our Retired Life made one of these, and I thought, hey, that's a good idea. I'm not sure how much we'll use it, but we thought if we're in a cold climate somewhere, or we have a bright light shining down, we want some shade or to block out that light, we'd use this. And basically, this is the leftover material from the curtains that are hanging in the front here, and inside is a political corrugated plastic sign material that I cut down to size, and then there's a layer of Reflectix, and then I use tacky glue to basically just glue this material to this square piece that I did here on the one side. And I added a little tab so when it's up in there it's easy to pull out. Alright, and I'll show you how it fits. I wanted it to be a snug fit so it wouldn't fall down. So kind of have to jam it up in a little bit, and it's curved, and then you just pull it back out. There you go. And then the other latest thing, I bought this sheet quite a while ago at the thrift store. We've had the black curtain here for quite a while that's also just a sheet folded in half. I think this is a King, California King, but it's like a really skinny twin sheet, and it fit pretty perfectly here. So I thought it'd be nice to have something other than the black, and again, just an extra layer. So if it's hot or cold out, that it just gives us that actually extra insulation. So I think I like it. You have to let me know what you think. Just a little change of color. And finally, the most significant project that I've been working on are the DIY insulated window covers for the cab, for the driver and passenger side. So this time for these window covers, I'm using different material. I'm using this silver material that's actually blackout curtain. The reason why I got this, I had some silver tablecloth material left over from the last window cover project, the windshield, but they actually don't sell that anymore at Walmart, and I didn't have enough for both window covers, so I'm going to use this instead. And I think it's actually better because it is the blackout curtain. It's a tighter material with more insulation, so I think it'll be a little bit nicer for this application. Next up, what I've done, this is the material that I used for my last set of window covers. It's the same tablecloth material that I had bought from Walmart. It's actually extra that I just cut off from the curtains I've been working on. So we've had it since the very beginning. We have these cardboard templates that we've used since the very beginning in the front windows of the cab. I'm not sure if I cut them out originally thinking I was going to make window covers, but we've used them for the last couple of years. So now it's pretty convenient that I already have them. I've laid them out on the material. I've traced around the edge with the chalk pen, which is so much easier than last time. I had no easy way last time to mark things. So this time it's all marked well, and then I did an extra about 1 inch around the whole edge that I will have left over after I secure everything, I will have that edge to add the edging around that I'll hot glue. So there it is without the cardboard template. What I've done, I've laid all this out on the silver blackout curtain, and now I'm going to trace onto that, cut everything out, and move on to the next part of the project. Next, I did the same thing with the silver material. Alright, so there's the first outline. Once the outside pieces of the material were ready, I moved on to the inside components, the Reflectix, and a sheet on the inside of the black material, simply because I had it and the black material is pretty porous, so it's just an extra layer of insulation. Then I started cutting the Reflectix to size. The cardboard templates really make it handy for getting everything sized correctly. So I traced the outline of the cardboard out onto the Reflectix, and now I've got these strips that are basically the natural width of the Reflectix that I bought. And I have this little corner here where the cardboard stuck out just a little bit past it. So what I'm doing, I'm just going to tape the Reflectix, this extra little scrap piece, on, and then I'm going to just cut it to that extra little bit. I don't know that that was necessary, but now we've got it all covered. So the next step, in order to secure this in place and hold the cloth panels together, I'm going to do stitch witchery down the center and make a center seam. When this is finished, then we'll be able to fold this in half and it'll fit in a smaller space. So in order to do the stitch witchery, here's the other outside panel that I'm going to lay over here. And I'll probably pin it in place. And then basically I'm going to have to iron the stitch witchery here. Then I'll pull this back, put the other piece of Reflectix in, and pin it back together. Alright, so I basically find the edge of the Reflectix, and I'm just going to pin both sides of the material together. So the underside and the top side. One more. And I'll go around the whole edge, and that'll hold it in place when I do the stitch witchery. Okay, so I've got everything on the ironing board here, and I've got the stitch witchery lined up right at the edge of the Reflectix. So I'm going to go ahead and put the silver material down and iron that. When you do the stitch witchery, you have to hold it for about 10 seconds on each spot to get it to fuse. Okay, so now it's fused. So you can't see the stitch witchery anymore. Yep. So here's where I just did the stitch witchery. So I have a seam. Now, hopefully, this piece will line up correctly. Pin this into place. And basically, this is a pretty straightforward project compared to the other window covers I've done. The next thing is I just need to pin this into place and trim it down and put edging around and the magnets. Before doing the edging, I decided to do a test fitting. Alright, let's see how this will work. Guess I have to have it the right way. Alright. So, ideally, where it's pinned, should be pretty much right on the edge. Alright, so what I've been working on, I've actually been doing stitch witchery around the whole edge of this in order to just secure the material more nicely for preparation before I do the edging. So here's what it looks like. I'm putting a layer of the stitch witchery between this outside layer and the brown material, and then another piece between the brown and the black, so it all seals together. I'll show you one place where I screwed up a little bit. Hopefully it won't matter too much. I should have started ironing the stitch witchery from the center and worked my way out, but I didn't. So now I've got this little section here that's bunched up that, see, it's not going to lay flat. So when I get to the ribbon, I'm going to have to try to cheat it a little bit. But that's too bad. But they're just window covers, I guess. I guess it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. Now I'm just going around the whole edge, trimming off the excess material, which makes it's easy to do because there's the stitch witchery. The material is actually fused right here, so I'm just cutting off beyond that. So now I'm taking the ribbon, folding it in half over this edge, and pinning it in place. Then I'll actually glue it down. When I glue it down, I'll have to worry about how to handle these curves. Alright, so I put it in here to see how it will fit. And I think it's actually going to work pretty well, and it wasn't too hard to do this project. A lot easier than the last set. Basically what I have is a large magnet right here, a small one right here, and then a broken large one, so it's about half the size here, a small one over on the left side, and two small ones. And then we don't need anything here because this just tucks into the ledge. And it seems to fit pretty well. I mean, I haven't finished gluing the trim, so it's a little rough here, but it's alright, I think. I wish this line lined up better with that, but that's, at least it's in line with it. What do you think?
I think it looks really good.
Alright, so I basically just have to glue it and this one's done. Alright, so I've been gluing all the edges down. It's probably the most fun part of the whole process. Except for my glue gun stopped working, so now I have to use my finger to push the stick through. So when I first do this, I don't worry about getting this all the way to the edge. And actually with hot glue, when it gets to the edge, if you get too much, it can be messy. So I might just do the main part of it with the hot glue and then come back and touch it up with, I think it's called tacky glue. I'll have to show you that. It's a different kind of glue that's a little bit less messy. But this actually helps as far as keeping the magnets in place, and I think it does well in heat. So it's a pretty good option for at least getting most of this secured. And did I mention it's fun? So I'm now starting on the second window cover for the front. It's unfortunate because I had Reflectix left over from the last project, but just enough to do one. So I had to buy a whole nother row.
Roll.
I had to buy another roll. It was about $10. So that made the budget a little bit higher, but I think that's okay. Got Gray overseeing the project again. Sort of. There's like a chew on her foot, I guess. Stinker. Not a very good supervisor, Gray. Lady Gray. She is a good sidekick, though. Alright, and here's the finished product. The nice thing with these window covers is that they're reversible. So at night, we can put the dark side out if we want. So we have two smaller magnets here, a large one here, a small one here in the curve, and then a half of a large one and a small one up here. And then because of the design of the door and how this is, the bottom just sits in here snug. And that's it. And the outside. Alright, and here's the other one. So the funny thing, I learned a little bit of a lesson of paying attention. Our first covers were all made with this material, this Reflectix, which has bigger bubbles and is thicker. The new stuff I bought is a lot flimsier, and that's what this one is. So it's not quite as nice, but it still works. But I recommend just heavier duty Reflectix. As promised, now I'll talk a little bit about the window covers I made originally. It's been about 2 years now since we've had these, and this was a colossal pain to make, this windshield cover, but it's been holding up great. So check out the video of that if you're interested in making your own. And next I'll show you just the final update on the back window covers. Alright, so the back window covers, the originals. I've been really happy with them. They've held up really well. And I will put the links in the description and in the comments as well to both this and the windshield cover. There's only 2 bits of feedback I have. First being that we use this material for all the window covers. And it's that tablecloth material from Walmart. It is not fade resistant, so I don't know if you can see here that it started to bleach in the sun, which isn't a huge deal, but if you care about that, I would recommend getting something that's fade resistant or a little bit heavier duty. So the only other thing that I would say is that the very first time I didn't put quite enough hot glue in some of the spots, so all I had to do was go back and touch some of that up. I used tacky glue and just reinforced some of the edging here, and that's it. So the original design worked out great, and I would recommend it if you're looking for a solution for no-sew window covers. So hopefully you found all that helpful if you're looking to do any covers for your van, and we hope you check out our other van build videos and travel videos if you haven't already. And coming up sometime soon, we should be doing a whole van tour, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.